Week one of the NFL season is almost wrapped up, and it wraps up tonight between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings, getting the Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams duo's debut tonight. The Lions didn't look so hot without Ben Johnson, and that's not the only headline we're going to talk about in this show. We're going to take a look at the top waiver wire ads of the week. Whether or not you are starting the season off 1-0 or 0-1, we have whatever you need here to go and address some of these positional needs that can help make your team reach the playoffs and potentially win a championship this year. So let's get right into this video here on Blitz Sports Media. What's going on, everybody? I'm Blitz Lincoln. We are back with our week 2 waiver wire guide for you guys here. Listen, week 1 is what it is, right? There's always going to be really big overreactions, people panicking. That's where we are going to swoop in, take advantage of those values, find the right players on waivers, whether or not we're 0-1 or 1-0, and then we are going to excel from that point on. And that's why we are watching this video today, and that's why we are going to target the right players on our waiver wire. Let's start out with the Cleveland Browns and their running back, Dylan Sampson. I have been a Dylan Sampson truther from the start of the offseason. As soon as we had the Quentin Judkins rumors that he would potentially not be suiting up for the first week, Sampson led the team in snaps this week at 53%. Jerome Ford followed him and played majority of third downs, but Dylan Sampson operated on early down, short yardage work, which was nice to see. He finished with 12 carries for 29 yards, and while that's not necessarily impressive, the volume enough is very good. And he also posted 8 catches for 64 yards, despite being heavily involved on early downs. That goes to show you what a quarterback like Joe Flacco is at this point. He's going to dump the ball down underneath, and we're going to talk about the tight ends later, but the running backs are going to be heavily involved in this system. We even saw him score a ton of these points with Raheem Sanders vulturing a touchdown on the goal line, Jerome Ford having a workload as well, and with Quinshon Judkins just working his way back into Browns practices as they're signing his contract this week, it could be a few weeks before he winds up suiting up for this team. So Dylan Sampson, a guy that does have a lot of viability as long as Quinshon Judkins is out, will be their lead back until that point. In PPR formats, he's an absolute got to have him in your lineup type of guy, whether that's an RB2 or a flex position that you put him in there. His volume is going to be enough to keep him very viable, and I absolutely love his outlook this year. I think even when Judkins returns, Quinshon Judkins will probably be the 55 to 60% type of back in this offense. And I wouldn't be surprised if Dylan Sampson is that second back out with the amount of volume and workload he could have when Judkins returns. So absolutely love Dylan Sampson's outlook to start the season. Our next running back is Kenneth Gainwell for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do I like this backfield? Do I like Arthur Smith? Absolutely not. But Kenneth Gainwell, I think he's a respectable ad. He's only rostered in 2% of leagues right now. And, the Steelers offense looked really good. Aaron Rodgers specifically looked really good. He accounted for 37% of the running back carries this week. He had more catches than Jaylen Warren, and he operated as the primary third down back. Jaylen Warren handled goal line work, short yardage work, which is nothing that he's done over his career, and he failed at that. So I don't know what the expectation was putting him in that situation. Caleb Johnston, our glorious rookie that we all thought was going to be a great fit in Arthur Smith's system, well, he had 1 carry the entire day and played 2 snaps. Not going to be viable over the course of a season. So we had to find one starting running back in this offense to roster. I know a lot of people are going to go with Jaylen Warren for sure, but I know the fact that Aaron Rodgers loves to throw to the running back, and I think in PPR formats, Kenneth Gainwell being rostered in only 2% of leagues makes no sense to me. I think he's a guy that we need to just roster. I don't think he has any sort of a ceiling. I think he's a flex play max, but I think he's a guy that you can plug and play, especially if you're really down at the running back position right now. You throw him in there, he could get you 10 to 12 points and not lose you a week, but he's not necessarily going to go out there, score 20 plus points and win you a week. He's more of a throw $1 on him, get him on my roster type of ad. Trey Benson's our next guy for the Arizona Cardinals. He's rostered in 39% of leagues, and he put together a nice stat line behind a 52-yard run. He finished with 8 carries for 69 yards this past week. We saw his snap share numbers increase, which was nice. James Conner is still the clear bell cow. He scored a touchdown, played 44 of the snaps. But, I mean, listen, I think Trey Benson's a player that I'm just super excited about to see what he could potentially do with the full workload in this offense eventually. I think that James Conner could potentially miss time at some point this season. Benson's a valuable handcuff, and he's even playing more than he did last season in terms of just getting on there with James Conner still being healthy. So I think that Trey Benson has a lot of viability. He's a high upside handcuff if Connor were to miss any time, and he should be rostered by James Conner owners and teams that are looking for a potential high end RB2 the rest of the season. If James Conner does miss time, they do have some favorable matchups coming up. In week 2, they face the Panthers, and they allowed 200 yards to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think that it's a pretty good case scenario that Trey Benson's value goes up even more after next week, after he gets a little bit of tread against the Panthers this next week. So I would go invest in Trey Benson while you can before too many people have him on their radar. Let's get into the wide receivers, and there's a lot more wide receivers than running backs available in this grouping. Marquise Brown's going to be the biggest name on the waiver wire for a ton of people to go out and add. Kansas City's passing attack is now down Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. It's basically the same story 2 straight years of where their wide receivers are just not on the field together all at once. And Marquise Brown's the lone wide receiver left right now. And in that game, he had 16 targets, 10 catches, 99 yards. He had a 41% target share and a 40% first read share. That's absolutely absurd. He didn't look great in terms of what he could do after the catch, and he didn't look as fast as he once did. But anytime you're paired with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and you command that type of a workload on a week basis, you need to be added in fantasy football. And he's a guy that you can automatically plug into your lineup as long as Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy are both out. I think Worthy's a guy that's going to miss multiple weeks. Rice will obviously be back in week 6. So we could see both those guys come back together at some point. And during that 5-week stretch with both them out, Marquise Brown's going to be a lock him in your lineup flex play that I think a lot of teams that are potentially have a premium at quarterback or tight end are looking for at that wide receiver position is a guy like Marquise Brown to plug and play in their lineup. So he's going to be one of the top targets on the waiver wire this week, and he's an absolute must-add for everybody considering the fact he's in the Chiefs offense paired with Mahomes, and the defense looks bad. So I think that they could be throwing the ball even more than normal this upcoming season. The next player is complete opposite. This one is more of a dart throw, like him after 1 week, and it's Calvin Austin, 2% rostered right now. He's their clear wide receiver too. He played 80% of snaps for them this past week and ran a route on 97% of Aaron Rodgers' dropbacks. He finished with 4 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Calvin Austin hasn't necessarily broke through yet as a player, but we've heard reports that he's been really good in camp, and the snaps are there. Like outside of DK Metcalf, this team needs a wide receiver too to step up and be consistent. It's not always going to go to DK Metcalf. It is going to be able to go to Calvin Austin as well. So I think Calvin Austin, you have to be excited about. This Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to throw the ball a bit more than they have in the past under Arthur Smith. The wide receiver too in this offense could be a viable pickup. I'm stashing him on my bench, and he's a guy that you could plug and play depending on the right matchup. The next player, Kayshon Boutte. I mean, this guy can play. Over his last 4 games, he has 343 receiving yards, and that's the 5th most among all receivers during that stretch. In week 1, he had 8 targets and posted 2.3 yards per route run, played 82% of the snaps, finished with 6 catches, 103 yards. I think he's breaking out exactly when the Patriots need him to. Stephon Diggs is working back from an injury. Drake May clearly has a lot of trust in him. I mean, there's everything is pointing in the direction that he's a strong waiver add. I don't think he's a must-start type of guy, but he's a guy that I think you roster. I think Diggs working back in from his injury, he's going to be very volatile. I think Kayshon's going to be a nice little addition that he's now proved 4 straight games with Drake May as his quarterback. This guy can play a little bit, and I think that, having guys like Kyle Williams behind him, Kendrick Bourne gets released, like he won that position. And I think he's going to have a pretty big role for the Patriots that threw the ball a ton, a lot more than expected in week 1. So I think he's a guy that you need to be adding on the waiver wire. Quentin Johnston's our next player here. Johnston had a really solid performance, 79 yards, 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs. He commanded 30% of the end zone targets last year for the Chargers. And then he saw 50% of the Chargers end zone targets in week 1 with a 21% target share and an 88% route participation. He's just, you have to have him on your roster. I know Quentin Johnston's not a popular name. He's not necessarily living up to the potential he had coming out of college, but he's a gotta have him on your roster type of guy. Like he averaged 11 points last season. You can plug him and play him in your lineup depending on the matchup. He's going to be inconsistent because they have Keenan Allen and McConkey, but if you're commanding that many targets in the red zone with his frame, he has to be rostered. He's going to have these spike weeks of 20-plus points, and we saw it last year as well. He's a player that you need to have rostered heading into the future weeks this season. Let's get to the tight ends. Brenton Strange is the first one. And it's exactly what we wanted to see from him. Played 80% of the snaps and 90% of third down snaps for the team. Finished with 4 catches and 59 yards, which is the 59 yards. Led the team this past week, which was nice to see. The target share was small at 13%, but he did have a 2.5 yards per route run, which is pretty solid. So I think Brenton Strange will be better going forward. I think the Jags passing offense was a bit inconsistent this first week, but I think they'll be better going forward. Strange is a guy, if you're missing out on the tight end position right now, that you go through and add and you trust him in your starting lineup potentially. If you're struggling to find a tight end one, I think he can be a tight end one this season. And based on the usage with Liam Cohen, I think he will be that this year. Harold Fannin Jr. is a breakout one, and this one's crazy. The Browns are just rolling out 2 tight end sets with David Njoku still running 40 routes, playing a ton of snaps. Fannin played 70% of snaps as well, and he ran around on 71% of dropbacks, earned a 20% target share this past week. I mentioned before, Joe Flacco loves to check the ball down to the running backs. He also loves to throw to tight ends. With David Njoku in a contract year and could potentially be a midseason trade candidate, Harold Fannin Jr. is a guy we have to have rostered. I'm not putting him in my starting lineup, but he's a guy that I stash on my bench, and I have to wait and see what happens with this Browns team at the deadline. But I think he's definitely a high upside player, and I expect a lot of 12 personnel from this Browns team going forward this year. The 49ers are a main priority add for a lot of people. They are facing the Saints, and they also have a pretty friendly 2-game stretch coming up after that as well. I think the 49ers are just the team you got to go at on defense. They look really good against the Seahawks, and a lot of people that love to roster one defense throughout the year. I think the 49ers defense is back this season. All right, let's get into the honorable mention waiver wires. At quarterback, I have Michael Penix Jr. and Daniel Jones. Penix had a really good game in terms of fantasy production. They threw the ball a lot more than expected. I think he's going to be a streaky guy depending on matchups throughout the year. Daniel Jones scored on every single drive he played. I don't know how long I'm going to buy into it, but I mean, he deserves a mention for that alone. At the running back position, Kyle Monagai, Kareem Hunt, Ollie Gordon. Ollie Gordon did play a lot after Devon Achane, but Devon Achane was a clear bell cow, so I think a lot of people are going to drop him. Still should be added with Achane's injury history. Kareem Hunt played a majority of the third down snaps for the Chiefs. A good add there, and then Kyle Monagai plays tonight. We will see what we get from him. Wide receivers, Cedric Tillman, Adam Thielen, Romeo Doubs, Wan'Dale Robinson, all commanded pretty good volume alone this past week. Dobbs actually led all receivers for Green Bay in snaps and routes run this week, so that was very entertaining. And we get to see Adam Thielen play tonight at the tight end position. If Hunter Henry is still available, make sure you have him added. He's available in 66% of fantasy leagues on ESPN. Chig Okonkwo and Juwan Johnson, both players that I'm monitoring. Juwan Johnson actually led all tight ends in scoring this week, which is crazy. And then defenses, Seattle Seahawks stash for week 3. They play the Saints. The Rams and the Patriots are also 2 defenses with good matchups here in week 2 that I'm taking a look at. As far as players that you should hold on to or droppable guys, I think this week is Cooper Kupp, Bashul Tutin, CJ Stroud, Tua Tagovailoa, and Rachaad White. Rachaad White did not play enough. Neither did Bashul Tutin for me to roster them. Cooper Kupp led all Seahawks receivers in routes run and snaps, but he only managed 3 targets. He's just not getting open at the rate he used to. He's clogging up a bench spot for higher upside options. Quarterback, CJ Stroud, Tua Tagovailoa in similar situations. Bad offenses. Tua is not performing at a high level at all. Make sure they are not rostered anymore. As far as the next guys go, do not drop these players. Josh Downs had a really quiet week, only played 15 snaps. Let's wait and see. Like, Downs had some injury problems, heading into week 1. But I think Downs is a guy we wait and see. If the snaps are like this for the next 2-3 weeks, yeah, we'll drop him. But he was a high upside pick heading into it, so let's not jump ship yet. Caleb Johnson, I still have him on here. I mean, the Steelers running backs were so bad last week. I mean, they're going to need to be better if Caleb Johnson is not going to eventually eat into their workloads. Dak Prescott had a down week in fantasy production, but actually looked pretty good. Braylon Allen still played 35% plus snaps this week, so hold him. And then Marvin Mims had a really down week. I expect him to be better going forward. Listen, if you guys need any sort of advice, make sure you drop it down in the comment section below. I am here to help you guys win your leagues and start getting back on the right track here. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more Blitz fantasy football content, and I will catch you guys next time.